Okay, welcome back, welcome back, welcome back to Pike Hiker's Guide to the Universe, the Star Citizen universe. Today we're going to start doing a little tutorial here on voice attack, as I wanted to kind of play around with it and I was having a hard time finding videos and information related to what I wanted to do. There is one other set of videos out there that are pretty good. I'll probably leave a link in the description below of the video that I watched to learn quite a bit. And I'm just going to kind of translate that into something that I wanted to do. So here we are in our ship. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to create a way to do the maintenance on the ship. I mean, refuel, restock, repair, do all those kind of things in a more interactive way, using voice attack rather than having to use my mouse and keyboard commands to do those things. I don't think it's part of the HCS pack, and there's probably a reason why, okay? And the reason why would be mouse movements and mouse clicking. So, in order to be able to use mouse movements and mouse clicking, you kind of have to know the coordinates of the screen. And everybody's screen coordinates could be different because maybe you're not using a large screen like I'm using, and maybe your resolution is not set to the same resolution that my screen is. All of those things would have an impact on whether the way I created this particular set of scripts is going to work for you or not. So it'd be something like if I were to give you this script, it may be something that you would have to edit because your screen size is different than my screen size. I don't use full screen, and a lot of people will probably play this game in full screen, but I don't use full screen because I have two monitors and I like to bounce back and forth between the two monitors and do certain things while I'm playing the game. So I usually run the game in non-full screen. I mean, it's a full-size window, but it's not full screen because see I have the menu bar up at the top. Okay, so that would also come into play in whether or not these coordinates are going to work for you. So just take that into consideration. This isn't a tutorial that I'm giving for you to use my exact settings, but hopefully by watching this tutorial you'll learn how to adjust it to your own settings so that you can get something like this to work for you. Now, I've included voice files and kind of played around with it a little bit. So let's just take a look at what we're talking about here. Contact maintenance services.
Thank you for contacting maintenance services. Please make your selection from the following options: repair, restock, refuel hydrogen, refuel quantum, refuel all, or full service. Please respond with the phrase "nothing else" to complete your order. Just say cancel at any time to exit the automated ordering system.
Cancel.
Your order has been canceled. Goodbye.
All right, so that was part of it where I just went in and got it to run and then canceled it. Contact maintenance services.
Thank you for contacting maintenance services.
So every time you start it up,
Please make your selection from the
we
following
have to
options:
listen to the introduction.
restock, refuel hydrogen, refuel quantum, refuel all, or full service. Please respond with the phrase "nothing else" to complete your order. Just say cancel at any time to exit the automated ordering system.
Restock.
Anything else?
Yes.
I'm all ears.
Repair.
Anything else?
Applesauce.
Sorry, I couldn't understand what you said.
Applesauce.
You broke up there. Let's give that another go.
Yes.
I'm all ears.
Refuel hydrogen.
Anything else?
Cancel.
Your order has been canceled. Goodbye.
So you can kind of see where I was going here. All right, so Let's move over into voice attack and see how this was created and how we created some of the options. Now, number one, of course, I created some sound files. Uh, you're not necessarily going to have those sound files, but you can create your own sound files. How you would go about doing that is a totally different subject, but you could create some sound files that you wanted to use to control how it sounds, how it interacts with you verbally when you're playing the game. Okay, so I wanted it to respond to me in a certain way. Now you could have voice attack respond to you using a built-in voice or anything along those lines, or you maybe don't want any responses back and you just want to see the mouse movements on the screen. Okay, so that's one of the things that you could do. So let's get it started on the voice attack side and take a look at how we built this. Okay, so here we are in our voice attack, and I'm under my profile, my SC custom. So we're going to get started here creating our little custom command. So the first thing we're going to do is, this is a list of all of our commands that we have, and now I have not segmented any of this or separated it out or organized it in any way, shape, or form, which is something you should do if you're going to be creating a lot of commands. I currently am not creating a lot of commands, so I haven't segmented them out. But let's go ahead and get started on the new command. So first thing we're going to do is going to click New Command. Once we click New Command, the New Command window opens. We have some options here on the left-hand side. And we could say something, we can press a key, we can press a button, like a joystick button, or we can press a mouse button. Okay, so we could issue a command based on all of those different options. We can also have a command that doesn't have anything checked, and it's called by another command. So one command can call another, so we may not ever say or do anything to issue this particular command. It is always going to be called by another command, and we would just turn off all of the checkboxes. Alright, so our command here is going to be, well, what do we want to do? We kind of want to contact maintenance services, so we're going to type that in here. So contact maintenance services, that would be our command. Now, the only time this would trigger would be if someone said contact maintenance services kind of by itself in a sentence by itself. Contact maintenance services. Well, that's pretty restrictive. So we want to kind of allow more options. And in order to allow more options, we need to bracket off the words that we're going to allow them to be optional. So we're going to take a bracket, and this is going to be a square bracket. We're going to put a left square bracket around contact, and we're going to put a right square bracket around contact. Immediately by doing that, we have segmented off contact from the rest of this statement. So this statement is now two separate segments. We have whatever is in the bracket, and then we have whatever follows after the bracket. So this would be segment 0 would be the word contact, and segment 1 would be maintenance services. This will come into play a lot of times when you're making up commands, because let's say we have a command called press the key 10 times. Okay, but we don't always want it to be 10 times. We want the person to tell us how many times they want us to press the key. So we'll put this in a bracket. That would segment it off. So now we have, in this particular phrase, we have 3 segments. We have the segment before the bracket, we have the segment inside the bracket, and we have the segment after the bracket. Okay, so there's 3 segments here, but in computer they're called segment 0, segment 1, and segment 2. So the 10 would be segment 1. Press the key would be segment 0, and times would be segment 2. So 0, 1, and 2 are the different segments. So we can set up a command to read in only one segment of the command that was issued. Whenever we say something, voice attack brings that in as a command. So there's a global variable called CMD, okay? Anytime it hears you say something and it recognizes what you say, it's going to bring that into this global variable called CMD. And that would be the command that you just issued and what it heard. So in this case, if I said press the key 10 times, command would say press the key 10 times. That would be what would be put into command. If I said what was in command segment 1 or 0, it would say press the key. That's what's in command segment 0 because that's the command that was just issued. So just understand when you bring something in, it's going to come in as a command. And it can be segmented out by using these brackets. All right, so within the brackets, we can have different options. So let's say contact is one of the options. We want to have more options. We want to be able to say contact, hail, whatever we want to be able to say. So we're going to put a semicolon in here. Make sure I press the right key between contact and the next word. And we're going to say hail. Then we're going to put a semicolon and we're going to say call. And we're going to put a semicolon and we're going to say reach out to. Those are all phrases that can be said now prior to issuing the maintenance services command. So we can say contact maintenance services, we can say hail maintenance services, we can say call maintenance services, or we can say reach out to maintenance services. That would be our command. Now, if we wanted to have reach out to maintenance and maybe we wanted to sometimes say save services we wanted to say, or maybe we wanted to say reach out to maintenance control, we could put that in brackets. We could have brackets around service, semicolon, control, semicolon, I don't know, Fred, whatever you want to have in there, you could have that. And then we could say hail, maintenance, control, reach out to maintenance services, reach out to maintenance Fred, okay, all of those kind of things. Optional. Now, once we create the bracket, if we want the entire bracket to be optional, I could add a semicolon at the end here. And what that would say is this section now just became optional because I left this blank. That means anything would work, right? So I could say nothing. I could just say maintenance services and it would recognize that I said maintenance services. If I want to be specific and I want it only to trigger when you say certain words, then I would get rid of the semicolon. So let's test this. So how are we going to test this? Well, what we're going to do is we're going to have the system read back to us what it thinks we said. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is set a variable for the command. All right, so we're going to come here to Other, Advanced, and we're going to set a text value. And the variable name we're going to call this is, let's say, spoken command. That's just the name we're going to call this. And what is it? Well, it's going to be a token of what was said in the command line. So we're going to create a token. And to create a token, we use the curly brackets, which are right above the square brackets. So we're going to curly bracket CMD curly bracket. All right, so that's going to take everything that we said and put it into this variable called command. And then what we're going to do, now that we've read that into a variable, we're going to have the system read that back to us. So we're going to go to, I believe it's Other, Sounds, say something with text to speech. So all we're going to do is ask the computer to read back to us what it thinks it heard. So we're going to say, I heard you say, and then we're going to, we want it to read back to us whatever was said in the command, but we've taken that, whatever was said in the command, and assigned it to a variable called spoken command. So we're going to tell it to read back what is in spoken command. I heard you say, and then we're going to use our token. So token start with the little curly brackets, and we're going to say txt colon spoken command in a bracket. All right, so hopefully what will happen here is we'll issue the command using one of the options, and it will repeat back to us what it thinks we said. All right, so we're going to say OK here, we're going to say OK here, and we're going to try this out. We're going to see if it works. So we're going to turn on, supply that, turn on speech. Contact maintenance services.
I heard you say contact maintenance services.
Reach out to maintenance services.
I heard you say reach out to maintenance services.
Hail maintenance services.
I heard you say hail maintenance services.
Maintenance services. Okay. So what we got there was it didn't recognize maintenance services by itself because we told it that it had to be one of these three words. So let's just make that real quick change and come out here and say, all right, let's put the semicolon at the end of reach out to. So what that does is it opens it up so that we don't really have to say any of these things. We can say anything to maintenance services, okay? Well, not really anything. We have to say something that it expects or maintenance services by itself. So let's see if that works. So we'll apply that. Reach out to maintenance services.
I heard you say reach out to maintenance services.
Maintenance services.
I heard you say maintenance services.
Applesauce maintenance services. See how that works. I don't have to say anything now before maintenance services. It opened it up to, it could be blank. Okay, so there could be blank before maintenance services. Now, if I say a particular word, it wants that word to be in the list. So it's either got to be in the list or it can be skipped altogether. You don't have to say anything. And then maintenance services. All right, so let's review that. We set the spoken command. So we speak this command, and then we set a variable to hold that information. So the variable name was called the spoken command, and what it was sent to this global variable called CMD, which is a token of what was said. We then said, okay, speak that back to me. I heard you say text spoken command. So that was the variable, right? So all it's doing is reading in the command and storing in the spoken command. Now, why do we do that? Why can't we just say, I heard you say, and then the command? Well, you could. But the problem with that is then you can't work with it, okay? CMD is always CMD. So what we want to do is kind of be able to work with these variables. So it's very useful to have them take whatever it is you heard and put it into the spoken command. Now, can we work with it? Certainly. I can change this. So right now, we're just looking at the whole command. But let's say I only want to listen to segment number colon. So here it's a colon. So if I say command segment colon 0, okay, and that's all I'm going to change. And we're going to say OK, and we're going to apply that. All right, and then we're going to call up our command. Contact maintenance services.
I heard you say contact.
Hail maintenance services.
I heard you say hail.
Reach out to maintenance services.
I heard you say reach out to.
Maintenance services.
I heard you say.
So what we did there is we said only return into that variable the part of this segment that we stated, that we said. Okay, the whole command still knows everything. I mean, command knows that all of this was said. But when we told it here, just tell me in the spoken command variable, just tell me the segment 0 part. So if I were to change this to segment 1, what do you think it's going to say? I think it's going to say maintenance services. No matter what my first word is, all I'm going to hear back is the maintenance services. So let's give it a shot and see if we're correct. Contact maintenance services.
I heard you say contact.
Oh, let's apply that. Sorry. Contact maintenance services.
I heard you say maintenance services.
Hail maintenance services.
I heard you say maintenance services.
Reach out to maintenance services.
I heard you say maintenance services.
So we learned quite a bit just in this little section right here. We learned how to formulate a command with some variables in it that we created so we can have the sections that we want. And this can be as complicated as you want. You could change the word maintenance and give them multiple options. You could change the word services and give them multiple options. So each one of these could be in brackets, in your square brackets, with multiple options. So I could say contact, I don't know what another word for maintenance. Repair. So I could say contact repair services. I could say contact refueling services. I could say, so it would just be in brackets: maintenance, semicolon, refueling, semicolon, repair, semicolon. Options, and then instead of saying services before, we say services. We could say company. We could say contact. Whatever we want to say. Okay, we could have that in our third section. So we would have segment 0, segment 1, and segment 2 all segmented out, and each of those having multiple options. And then you could see down here, we could start inspecting each one of those segments to find out what it was somebody said. So if you think broadly, we could create a command that says maybe maintenance services, and we could have it semicolon landing services. And depending on whether you said maintenance services or landing services, we could pull up the different windows in the game. If you said maintenance services, I'm going to pull up the maintenance window for you. If you said landing services, then I would just go over and contact landing services for you and click on the friends and then click on the little contact. And I would have to be able to distinguish that in here, whether you said maintenance or landing. And then we'd have to have statements that would allow us to inspect what you said and then respond accordingly. So it can get pretty complex. But just starting with the basics, this is the basics. We're reading in a command, we're figuring out what that command says by listening to certain parts of it and taking the parts that we want to use and creating more for our command. Let's change this back. Let's see. Yeah, we'll leave it for right now. All right, so the next thing we would want to do would be, once we heard the command, we'd probably want to do something on the screen. But I'm not going to do anything on the screen right now. We'll save the screen stuff for later. What we're going to try and do is get a flow going here. So once I would do this, I would say, okay, we've issued this command, so we're going to pull up our screen, we're going to say something, we're going to introduce them, we're going to say, hey, this is maintenance services, how can I help you? Okay, or something along those lines. And then we're going to want to wait for them to respond. So our next command that we want to issue here is we want to wait for that response. So we're going to issue them a statement of what they're allowed to say or what we're expecting for them to say. And in this case, for maintenance, it's going to be either repair, restock, refuel quantum, refuel hydrogen, maybe some other options. All right, but that's what we want to listen for. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go to Other, Advanced, I believe it is, Get User Input. And in this particular case, we're going to wait for them to say something. Okay, it's a voice command after all. That's what we want to do. So we're going to wait for a spoken response. Now, here we go again. The responses are very similar to building a command. What are the responses that we can accept? Now, it's formatted slightly different. We don't need the brackets in order to set it up in here. The system is probably going to auto-generate those brackets for us, so we don't need to include them. What we do need to do is include the responses. So our responses are going to be repair. It's one of our responses. Semicolon, just like before, separating out these words separately, semicolon. Restock, semicolon. Refuel hydrogen, semicolon. Refuel quantum. Those are exactly what's on the buttons. Now, how do we know when we're done? Like, we're going to say this, right? So if I say repair, it's going to go down and click the repair button for me. And then it's going to say something like anything else, because I want to know if we're done or we're not. We're going to wait for a spoken response. And one of those spoken responses could be, I'm done, right? Or in our case, we're set it up so that it's going to search for, let's see, what is it searching for? Nothing else, right, is what we're searching for. So we ask the question, anything else? And if you say nothing else, I'm going to finish up. All right. You can also say cancel. Okay. So that's one of the options we have. You can also say yes is one of the responses you can have. Because if you say anything else, well, somebody could say yes, right? And then it would just go into like, oh, a pause mode, and wait for you then to give me the second response, which would either be repair, restock, refuel, refuel hydrogen, refuel quantum. But then again, we might also want them to be able to say refuel all, because we want them to be able to refuel both hydrogen and quantum at the same time. So we just say refuel all, so that it'll do both of those options for us. And the other one we can do is full service. And full service would do the repair, the restock, the refuel hydrogen, and refuel quantum all together. And that would be the end of that. We're going to put that into a text variable, and you can get, you kind of want to get creative with your names, but for this simple little one, we're just going to do var1. Okay, so we're just going to put it into var1. So whatever they say is going to go into var1. Now, we are restricting them to saying any of these words currently, just like we did in the command. Before we put the semicolon at the end, we were restricting them to these words, okay? And we're giving them 15 seconds to say something, or we're going to continue on. Now, we could also click this button that says continue on any speech, meaning if they say anything at all, we're going to try to go through and find what they said. We'll come back to that because we're going to add that feature, but for right now, let's keep it simple. We just want to look for certain words. All right, so we're going to wait for a response, and then once we get a response, we're going to move forward if it's one of these responses. So we're going to say it again. Now this time we're just going to copy this. So we're going to come up here and say, I heard you say. Well, first thing we're going to do is we're going to set the spoken again. Well, we don't have to. I'm sorry. We don't have to because we've already set it here. So it's var1. Okay, we've already set the response. So all we're going to do is come down and we're going to copy this or duplicate it. So I'm going to duplicate it and I'm going to drag it down below here. And now what I want to do is I want to say I heard you say again, but we're going to edit it because instead of spoken command now, I'm interested in what they said in var1. Okay. So up here, we were looking for what they said up in this command. Down here, we're looking for the variable that we created when we heard them speak a word, which was var1. So now I just want to say var1 over here. So let's give that a shot and see what happens. Contact maintenance services. Let's turn our microphone back on. Contact maintenance services.
I heard you say maintenance services.
Refuel. Refuel.
I heard you say not set.
Alright, so it didn't hear what I said and it's not understanding refuel. So let's try that again, and we're not getting a variable up here. Contact maintenance services.
I heard you say maintenance services.
Let's do this. Cancel.
I heard you say cancel.
Alright, so it heard us say cancel. I wonder why it didn't hear us say repair. So let's do something. Let's add something, another check in here. Not only do I want to hear what you said, I want to see what you said. So, and let's add another thing in here. So let's duplicate this say, I heard you say, because there's a pause in there. And let's say, what can I get you? And let's just add a pause of, let's see, over here. Let's add a pause of 2 seconds between here and here. So we're gonna confirm that we heard the command. We're gonna wait 2 seconds. We're gonna say, what can I get you? And then we're gonna wait to hear a response, and we're gonna say, I heard the variable. So let's try that. Contact maintenance services.
I heard you say maintenance services. What can I get you?
Restock.
I heard you say restock.
Contact maintenance services.
I heard you say maintenance services. What can I get you?
Repair.
I heard you say repair.
Okay. Not sure why I didn't hear that the first time, but it's hearing it now. All right, and what we're going to do is, because you could hear in the, this pause 2 seconds didn't seem like it did anything, right? So what we're going to do is because it's going through this and it's trying to issue all these commands, so we have to tell it, in order for this pause to really take effect, we would kind of have to time out this spoken command and how long it says to say that, and then wait a couple seconds before it would say this next one. Or our other option is we can come up here and say something with text-to-speech, and we can say wait until speech is completed before continuing the next command. So now it's going to say the speech, then it's going to pause 2 seconds. So we should hear a difference here in how it replies. Contact maintenance services.
I heard you say maintenance services. What can I get you?
Restock.
I heard you say restock.
Okay. So that's probably going to be it for this little lesson right here. We learned quite a bit. We've got a way to make a command. We know how to look at the different command segments or look at the entire command and bring it over and put it into a variable. Once we have that variable, we can use it. We can use it to save something back. We'll be able to use it to trigger something, some kind of action. In this case, we were just trying to verify that it heard it correctly and it's hearing exactly what we want it to hear. In this case, segment 1. But let's just go ahead and change this back to segment 0 because it makes more sense to hear the different variables. Okay, we'll change that back to 0. And then it's going to just repeat back that whatever you said. It's waiting a couple seconds and then it's saying, please, or what can I get you? And then it's waiting for another response. And your response has to be one of these. Now, and then it's saying, I heard what you said. So it's just repeating back to us what we said. All right, so let's just see how this finally plays out. And then in the next section, we'll get into buildings our options. So we know we're hearing, we're trying to verify we're hearing what we want to hear. We're getting the information we want to get from the person. And now we're going to start acting on it in the next session. So let's just go ahead and apply that. Make sure we're still good. Contact maintenance services.
I heard you say contact. What can I get you?
Cancel.
I heard you say cancel.
So let's do it again, but not say anything, and we'll see what kind of response we get back. Contact maintenance services.
I heard you say contact. What can I get you? I heard you say not set.
All right, so what she's replying back is not set, N-O-T space S-E-T, telling us that the variable was never set, meaning we never set anything, so we didn't set the variable to anything, so it was not set. We know if we say one of the words, it's going to tell us one of the words. If we don't say anything, it's going to come back and say not set. Another option, I guess before we move on, let's do this. Let's go ahead and let's turn off the microphone for a second. We're going to come down here and we're going to do one other thing. We're going to print out what it's hearing and what it's saying over here. So we're going to do advanced, I believe. We're going to do write a value to the event log. And the value we're going to write to the event log is the text variable. So we're going to do the same thing we did before, txt colon var 1, and we're going to print that in blue. Okay, and the reason why I do that is so you can see the different responses that come back. So remember we talked about earlier that we can wait for a spoken response, or let's say we put another semicolon in there and we open it up on the end, and that means, well, we don't even have to put a semicolon in there, I don't believe. We won't put a semicolon in there. What we will do is say continue on any speech. No matter what we say, it's going to continue on now. And it's going to put something in variable, right? So let's find out what it puts in variable. So we're going to say OK. We're going to apply this. We're going to turn speaking back on. Contact maintenance services.
I heard you say contact. What can I get you?
Repair.
I heard you say repair.
Okay, so it's printing out what it heard. Contact maintenance services.
I heard you say contact. What can I get you?
Applesauce.
I heard you say at invalid.
Okay, so what it came back with was an invalid response, meaning it wasn't one of the words. It heard us say something, but it wasn't one of the words, so we came back with invalid, which is important. We can use that, right? So if somebody says something that we don't understand, it comes across as invalid. Let's see what it does when we don't say anything. Contact maintenance services.
I heard you say contact. What can I get you? I heard you say not set.
All right, so we got a lot of critical information there. If it hears a word that it understands because it's in our list, we're going to get that word. If it hears a word that is not in our list of words for it to work on, it's going to come back and say invalid. Or if it doesn't understand the word, it's going to come back and say invalid. If it doesn't hear anything, it's going to come back and say not set. We can work with all of that information. All of it is stuff we need to know to kind of control what happens. We're either going to do something because we understood. We're going to ask them to repeat themselves because we didn't understand. They said something, but we didn't understand. Or they didn't say anything, and we're going to respond to that. All right, so that's it. Hopefully you learned some stuff here in this one, and we'll get to more, and we'll continue on in the next section. Thanks for watching, guys.